Welcome to the Australian Growth Company Awards for 2020. Who would have thought when I gave my speech this time last year that we would spend most of this year working from home, not wearing suit pants in video conferences, and starting every meeting saying, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hey, you're on mute, Bob. Bob, you're on mute." It's been a pretty tough year. We started with record droughts, horrific bushfires, and then COVID hit. The pandemic has created not only serious health issues, financial uncertainty and market volatility, but for leaders it's created a mix of complexity managing through that chaotic cycle and supporting your people mentally. So building grit and perseverance are pivotal for us to master, not just individually, but also organisationally. So what is it? Grit is perseverance and mental toughness for long-term objectives. Resilience is the ability to recover and bounce back or even bounce forward and thrive in the face of adversity. One of my favourite quotes on grit is by Teddy Roosevelt. "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes again and again." It requires a sense of optimism, which empowers you to appraise situations and then regulate your emotion. It also requires a core belief that those negative experiences are necessary so you can learn and grow. So why is grit and resilience important? The first benefit of grit is that it is a better predictor of success than other factors like strength or intelligence. Take a look at the work done by Angela Duckworth, who studied cadets at West Point doing beast barracks. Another benefit is it helps to manage stress and burnout. Workplace stress is a widespread problem and linked with high rates of burnout, depression and anxiety, and in turn those reduce productivity, crush innovation and drive absenteeism. I spoke with Chris Feidler, Olympic gold medalist, who said, "I think grit and resilience is the key difference between very good and great. In all sports there are examples and lots of talented athletes who become very good at what they do, but when things don't go to plan or the pain is really starting to kick in, it's the ability to stay focused and dig deep when others might give up that allows the very good athletes to become great. But beware of the dark side. Excessively gritty leaders may become hardened, hiding behind a mask of toughness, sacrificing softer characteristics like generosity and respect. They may even develop coping mechanisms against the stress of work by pumping themselves like King Kong, overinflating their egos, which makes them less likely to learn from mistakes. So how can we build grit? At an individual level, we can build grit in a few ways. Gritty people strive for excellence, not perfection. This is a subtle but important difference. Perfectionists tend to be fussy, inflexible pedants. Excellence, by contrast, is far more flexible and functional. It embraces this issue of extent. When is enough enough? The US Army Handbook also has a section on resilience, which explains it's a little bit like a muscle and we can strengthen it by continually pushing ourselves out of our comfort zones a little bit every day. Another tool is mindfulness, which is obviously when you're aware and attentive and focused in the present moment, rather than just being on autopilot. And there are several studies which find that low mindfulness is a strong predictor of burnout in care workers, over and above other things like workload or co-worker support. Coping strategies are important as well. To be gritty, you need to be able to focus on solving the problem and not be emotional. Viktor Frankl said, "Between stimulus and response there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response, and in our response lies our growth and our freedom." So there's a shitty event. You can either be active and focus on how you solve it, or you can be emotional and reactive. Avoid the issue, or worse still, vent, rant and withdraw. So the final strategy is understand your own journey, what got you to here, map out your lifeline, the ups and downs, and then you can see the challenges and setbacks for what they were. Important learning experiences and proof that you can actually bounce forward. At 17, I was lucky enough to do the Sydney to Hobart yacht race. It was one of the biggest storms in history and over 36 boats retired. Howling winds, boiling seas, the waves were smashing over the boat. I finished my watch at 3 AM and I was terrified, exhausted, wet, seasick and felt helpless. But when I woke up the next morning in the storm, I put my safety gear on and I leant into the storm. I was busy and purposeful, and it was an important lesson for me, kind of personally. So at a collective level, we can build a gritty organisation. And no, the answer is don't put sand in the foyer. When I'm talking about resilience, I'm not talking about balance sheets or earnings. I'm focused on culture. So the resilience of your firm is the sum total of all your resilience, not just yours as leader. So one tip for a leader to build resilience is to ensure you don't play the blame game. For a discussion to be a learning experience, the team needs to really feel you're not pointing fingers or looking for a scapegoat. So our style of public beheadings will not engender the risk-taking that's required for innovation or progress. Secondly, it's kind of hard to feel like a victim when you're laughing. Humour's a great tool for leaders to take some of the pressure out of situations. When Shackleton assembled his crew for the Antarctic voyage, he deliberately sought out people with a good sense of humour, who could sing, tell stories and jokes. So another strategy for ensuring your organisation is resilient is a pre-mortem or a fire drill. So a post-mortem is when, after a disaster, you look at all the facts and try and figure out what went wrong. The pre-mortem is when you look ahead and try and consider what all the things that could go wrong, and you can build out some strategies to mitigate and prevent those things from happening. A key benefit is that when you're doing that, you're not under time pressure, you're not stressed, and therefore your brain's not clouded with cortisol, which makes you emotional. As leaders, we also need to make sure we hire and retain talent where grit and resilience are strong character traits. So those are the people who are mindful, who can de-centre, who can put problems into perspective. They are those sorts of people who are using problem-focused coping mechanisms rather than being emotional. Chris Sacca, one of the most successful angel investors of all time, who invested in unicorns like Uber, Twitter, Instagram, says you can start by simply favouring candidates who've rolled up their sleeves and pushed through, whether it's competitive sports, cadets, travelled or worked overseas. Speaking of unicorns, many founders talk about being the next unicorn. But how about being a camel? Camels survive and thrive in harsh environments. They can last for days without water, and they're hardy and determined. Let's be camels. Finally, I wanted to talk a bit about purpose. I believe having a strong sense of purpose, both as a leader and as an organisation, can be the anchor against the storm. So why are you leading? Use the Toyota manufacturing technique. Ask yourself 5 times why you're leading and make sure you don't use the same answer twice. You can dig deep here. Then why is your business in business? What's the impact on its people, its teams, its industry, the community? For example, at Hamilton Locke, when COVID hit, we had a clear sense of our purpose, which is having a nurturing, collaborative culture and to create a great people experience. So all our decisions, all our time and all our energy were anchored around that core purpose. So in summary, leaders can build grit both individually and collectively by hiring and retaining gritty teams, using humour to help buoy against setbacks, and ensuring that your people respond logically rather than emotionally. And last but not least, having a really clear sense of purpose. Thank you.